Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Blockchain Banter, Trading Crypto. I am here with Keith Allen, co-founder of Material Indicators, TA and algo trader, order book analyst, all of the above, along with Dr. Mark Richardson, project lead at Banter and Carbon DeFi. And I'm Jen, your host. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. Excited for this episode today because there was a serious flip in my feed. You know, we went from like bearish, this is it, it's over, there's no real bull run this time around, and all of a sudden everyone's bullish again, but I'm skeptical. So to have Keith and Mark here with me, I'm really glad to kind of dig in a little bit more so than what I'm seeing. You know, we always say don't go by your favorite influencers, right? So instead, I'm going to go to my favorite experts here, ask you guys what you're seeing. Keith, are you up for starting us off? Maybe sharing your screen and
Sure.
telling us a little bit about what you're seeing, or even, you know, we
Yeah.
saw Bitcoin go up to 73 again, or 71. I'm sorry, 71.
Right.
I got 73 in my head, right? 71. I saw everybody's so happy that Ethereum's at 3,800, you know, or was the last time I had seen. What do you think was behind this? Was there something significant in the order book that you were seeing? Mark, I want to get your take on this too. We've got kind of a short show today, shorter. It's going to be about 30 minutes we're limited to. So I don't want to just keep gabbing. I want to kind of pass it over to you guys.
Well, we did see some movement in the order book yesterday and again today that certainly helped illustrate what was happening. And I did a pretty extensive yesterday. I did a really a deep dive on what I feel is behind this move and what I was seeing in the order book. And the two things that stood out to me is one, there is a bill headed to the U.S. House of Representatives this week called FIT 21, and it's like financial information technology for the 21st century. And this is, if it passes, it will set up a regulatory framework in the U.S., which in the past so far has been 100% under the SEC's jurisdiction, and they have pretty much just ruled by enforcement and dragged their heels on a lot of things, and it's been very, very difficult. This bill, if it passes, is going to split up some of that, split up the regulatory jurisdictions between the SEC and the CFTC, and one will have I think securities is really where the line is drawn here, and this is something that has obviously been in debate for quite some time. So things like ETH are going to be debated. The other thing that really sparked ETH is all of a sudden the SEC puts out a notice to all the applicants that they need them to update their applications like
Right.
within 24 hours. And to me, yesterday I was thinking when I first saw the FIT 21 news, I was like, maybe it makes sense. You know, they had already kicked the can down the road on approving that ETH spot ETF. Gosh knows how many times, and it was supposed to be voted on, I think, a week or two ago, and they kicked the can down the road again. And I thought, well, hey, maybe they're waiting for this FIT 21 bill, and then that might change things a little bit. Now I'm wondering if they are flexing for jurisdiction authority by getting this done now. That remains to be seen. Obviously, it hasn't approved yet, but the chances, from what the experts are saying, the likelihood of that ETF getting approved has just increased exponentially. So, this may be a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of event. We saw how that transpired with the Bitcoin ETFs, which
Right.
ultimately, yes, it was in the short term a buy the rumor, sell the news event, but long term is going to have seems to be having a positive impact on price. So maybe we see the same thing out of ETH. It has a long way to go to get, to get through all these, to jump through all these hoops. The other thing that I saw, obviously, and maybe I should go to some screen sharing here. ETF flows have been net positive for the past, every day last week, and um, and so far yesterday as well. Uh, Grayscale had only sold on one day, by the way. Um, I'll go ahead and share that, and we'll take a quick look at these ETF flows. And this was noteworthy to me as well. I wish the Hong Kong data was coming in as quickly and cleanly as the US data is. Don't really know what's going on with them. The last update I saw from them was on the 16th in Hong Kong, and that was a $13 million outflow. But in terms of what's happening in the US, obviously net positive here, and only one day of outflows for Grayscale. Incidentally, Grayscale CEO Michael Sonnenschein announced his resignation yesterday. He's out. They're bringing in a new guy from Goldman, who starts mid-August. I'm willing to bet that those 1.5% fees start coming down pretty soon. Meanwhile, Fidelity, I have a friend who's bought the ETF on Fidelity, which has been with no points, free up until now, but they just announced that they're going to go up to a quarter point here in August. So the honeymoon is over, right? They're gonna start getting paid for that, which makes sense. That's all fine and understood. I think everybody expected that. So now to what's going on today. I don't know if you guys ever check out these liquidation maps from the Kingfisher. This guy puts out great data, and he's showing here a liquidation cluster above 71K up to 73.5 ish or so, right? Really up to the all-time high, to be honest with you. But it's pretty thin up there. But the lion's share of it here up into the 71, 72 range, and a little more up at nearly 73, and so on and so forth. So this is interesting to me. And the reason that this is interesting to me is because it correlates really, really well with what, in terms of technical analysis, I call a measured move. We take the swing low and high of the channel on this trend here, right? And it's a descending wedge, and we take it to the breakout level, and that puts us literally right up at where that liquidation map showed us, right? It's 73 and change, 73, 200 or so. And that is exactly in this range here. So that's a plausible short squeeze, right? It's right there. Now, late longers are also in jeopardy here, and that's what we're looking at right now, right? These are long liquidations, over leveraged liquidations that are in jeopardy of getting hit here. And so let's look at fire charts and see where things are stacking up. What we had seen yesterday that made me think that this was a choreographed short squeeze, and hopefully it's still here on the chart a bit. We started seeing sell walls coming into place, right? So a sell wall, somebody sees a big sell wall and they go, that's the top, right? So they open a short. Well, the sell walls kept stair-stepping upward. Let me move this tag tool so it's out of the way. The sell walls kept stair-stepping upward. Boom, 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 right? So now they're drawing it up, and here comes the buying. Here comes the buying flow. Here's the purple whales, right? Boom, boom, boom. It's coming up. They're pushing price up. And all right, so they put another wall here. Okay, maybe that's where we short from. And then what happens? They drop it down. They push it down, and then somebody puts on the brakes here with a nice chunky buy wall, and so we start going up. And then we see whales coming in. We see all classes pretty much buying. Yellow is still pretty much on a trajectory of its own. I think this is largely populated, even though it's the smallest class. I think it's dominated by whale bots, TWAP bots. When we start seeing real contour in it like this, then I think there's a lot of retail action coming into it. And it did, right? Here's the panic. We get over 70K, 69K, and they start FOMOing in, right? And so again, we saw these areas where it looked like, okay, this is the top. They're putting up these walls. This is going to be the top. And then they start dropping them down. Okay, that lures in more shorts. Same thing. We see it. We saw it stair stepping, and unfortunately, this is off the chart on the daily chart, so we can't see it as well in terms of resolution. Maybe these later ones now they're already gone too. But so now what we're seeing, look what's happening on the support side. Okay, so now you think, okay, this is safe to long here, right? Because we have bid support coming in. But guess what? I don't trust it because it starts stair stepping down, right? And so this to me is an indication that that now they're going to go. They're going to, at the same time they're luring in more longs. Luring in more shorts. They're squeezing more longs. I don't think they're punishing longs. I don't think that the upside of the short squeeze is done. It's fine for them to come back here and revisit this. What I'm watching super close here is this 69K level of whether or not that holds or not. At the moment, we have a mere $6 million there, right? There was nothing there before. We have, a mere $6 million propping that up at the moment. What we want to see, or what I want to see, is this all disappear and go back and buy 55, but I don't know if I'm going to get that. Okay, truth be told, I want to buy lower, but I don't know that we're going to get that.
Well, nobody can be mad at you for wanting to buy lower.
Right. Well, I'm sorry. It's just, I got to be me. I got mouths to feed. I got college to pay for. I got a lot going on here. So what we've seen here in the past, in the past 24 hours, actually the past few hours even, is more bid liquidity coming in above 60K. And this is positive. This is something you do want to see, the bulls want to see. And so where could we land from here? If we get this pullback, if we lose the 69K, right? 69K may hold and we may go up here and try this again. But if it doesn't, then I think that there's a good chance that we go down and we revisit 65 or potentially 63. That's my targets for the moment. At the moment here, you also see some significant selling from literally every order class. So is somebody going to come in and rescue this and hold it back up? Or are we going to degrade, erode back down here? There's not a ton in the middle here, right? So where's the biggest buy wall? The biggest buy wall is still at 60K. There's still next to nothing below 50K. And so this is where the action is. Here's where the party's at.
Keith, this sort of choreographed short squeeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was short-lived. Are they generally this? Is that kind of one of those where, I mean, it was what, a day, 2 days, 3 days, we're looking at a week here.
No,
right?
that was a 1-day move so far. And it is, it came off of a flat weekend, right?
Right.
Weekend was pretty uneventful. And then we came out of the gates with a green weekly candle, a new trend precognition signal on the weekly. But I was noticing some mixed signals on some of the indicators. We had a green long signal on the weekly time frame, which obviously is playing out here, but also seeing a loss of momentum showing up on some other indicators. And I can illustrate for you what that looks like here. Literally yesterday in the middle of my live stream, we started to see this fade. We started to see momentum fading, and then it came back. And we also see here with the trend precognition algo, right? We had a signal. Turn that back on for you. We had a signal on the weekly, and that signal looks pretty solid, right? It's grown in strength since it appeared at the candle close. And then yesterday, mid live stream, what I thought was declining momentum started to change, right? We started to see an uptick here, and same situation here with the A1 slope line. It started to roll off of its trajectory a bit, meaning still upward, but maybe not as strong as it was prior to that. And now things are shifting a bit. So on the daily, same thing. It's getting a little bit of whiplash here, and that's not common to see it react this quickly to move. So I think there's some less than organic forces at work here.
This is why I like this call so much. Just because there are few and far between. I mean, you don't see many that are really kind of providing this sort of like deep dive into it. right? You just don't. And
Right. And so in terms of support, we looked at those levels of support at that 63 and 65K range, and that's right where these moving averages are. Right.
yeah.
So I was expecting this retest down here. It didn't happen. We broke through this 50-day moving average. That's the red one. We did get a little bit of a test there. We did get a 1, 2 candles on it, and then this breakout here. If we go back down, I won't be sad.
Okay, so really fast before I hand it over to Mark, first of all, thank you so much. We didn't get that retest that you were looking for. We've been talking about this retest, right? So
Yes,
now that was what, 62-ish, if I
but
can see?
there's for what it's worth, there's a history of me not getting what I want, both in the charts and in life. Uh, you got to work for it. Um, you know, we never got the retest here down to 45. We never got the retest here down to 52. And so all of these moves, in my opinion, had a little bit of help in terms of what felt like unnatural, inorganic moves. And
Deus Ex Machina. The hand of
right,
God has reached into the charts and moved them, yeah.
right. So you could stick by your guns and go, this is bullshit. It's manipulation. It shouldn't be happening. Price should be going down. Well, you could do that, and you could watch price continue to move away from you, or you can recognize what's there, figure out what your best bets are in terms of what's your upside potential and what's your downside potential,
Right.
manage your risk accordingly, and play the game.
Emotion
Or
aside, the
just
data.
buy and hold, because that's really outperforming at this point
Well, we talked
most
about that
people.
too. Hodling is a strategy.
Yes,
You don't need to be actively trading in order to have an actual strategy. And that's one of them.
that is a strategy.
Yeah.
And
Doing
it's one that comes with much less stress and takes much less time.
Yep.
doing nothing is still a completely valid position to take. It's the important thing is that you've considered it before deciding to do nothing. It can't be doing nothing by de facto.
Right.
Wait, what do you mean? You can't be doing nothing by de facto.
Well, I mean, you otherwise you would class what 99% of the human race as being actively participating in it, like do nothing trading strategy. I think that if you deciding that the position that you have is the one that you want to keep is totally fine, but that doesn't mean that we afford that same the same stock in that in that position for people that haven't yet considered it and are just doing nothing because they haven't thought about it yet.
Okay, different.
It's the difference, but it's also the difference between, or for me, what I consider investing versus trading.
All right.
Yeah.
Some people trade de facto that way because they don't know what they're looking at. But if you're making an educated decision and that's your strategy, more power to you.
Yeah.
Knuckleheads like me just keep trying to beat that, and it's difficult to do.
Well, you've got to really know what you're doing, right? You've got to have conviction.
You have to have conviction. But what you have to have even more than conviction is good risk management.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's one of those things we talk about often, but still can't stress enough, right?
Yeah, and and there are multiple forms of risk management we talk about frequently. Position sizing is one that we all like. Obviously, cutting your losses sooner than later, and identifying what those invalidations are really, really important. But also waiting for confirmations and validations before you go all in. And so, and scaling your way in and out of positions. These are all strategies that I use. And probably the safest is waiting for confirmation, but there's an opportunity cost for that, right? I could have opened positions earlier yesterday at increased risk. In hindsight, do I wish I did? Yeah, but Kind of busy this
That's
week.
because it turned out the way that it did, right? Because
Right.
it's hindsight. It's so much easier to look back and say, yeah, okay. But it's also
Right.
one of those I always think, but had I actually done it, market probably wouldn't be where it's at right now.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? Like, I'll take
Right.
it for what it is. I'm happy with what I've got here. Mark, we have about 10 minutes. I want to pass it over to you. I don't know if you have something that you want
Yeah.
to speak about specifically. If you're going to
Yeah,
be,
I think a couple of things I want to speak about. It dovetails relatively well, I think, into what Keith was just showing us. And like I said, I think that Keith's presentation on the Bitcoin stuff is something that I'm never going to be able to compete with. And so I try to contrast that conversation a little bit by looking at.
It's not a competition, man.
You can only say that because you're the one that's clearly winning it. But okay, the thing that I did want to bring attention to, as Jen said, there's been a lot of like very bullish sentiment around ETH over the last 24 hours, and it has made a pretty significant move. And you'll notice that I'm always looking at the very, very long time scales, and so if we back this up into the day, then you can see that this actually is a fairly significant green candle, and there's a good reason for people to be excited by it. But let's have a look at everything in context and see if we how we feel about this evolving over the coming days and weeks. So the first thing is ETH versus the US dollar has been up in a very significant uptrend for some time. And there's nothing here that would suggest a reversal, in my opinion. So we're not seeing any, bearish reversal indicators either on the RSI or on the MACD, which is good. Which suggests to me that it's, the market could pull back, but it's not going to like suddenly crash, in my opinion. I think that we'll probably chop sideways from here, maybe a little bit further up as we approach that all-time high, something like that. I don't expect this to happen anytime like very soon. But I don't think that this is, this doesn't look overcooked to me. We are approaching sort of that 70 level on the RSI. So like I always say, it's okay if you've missed this train. There'll be more buying opportunities later. And if you are going to take a long position on ETH just by buying it, then just know that it would have been better to do it yesterday. And that's generally the perspective that I want to bring to things, right?
But only 20% better.
Yeah, but these are, these are weekly candles. You've had a lot of time to consider ETH as a position. Why wait until it's more expensive, until you get like a higher, you have to pay a higher premium for that position. This is that's trading backwards. And so one of the things I do want to look at is where, let's have a look at Bitcoin first. I'll turn off some of these moving averages because I think this complicate the story a little bit. This is, I've said before in a previous call, I do have this channel that starts way back in March of 2013 that I looked to find sort of Bitcoin returning to. We didn't really get it very much in 2020, and I have adjusted this over the years. But you can see in 2023 and 2024, it did hug this channel quite well. And we're above it now. And exactly the same way that Keith is saying that he's looking for, like retests. It's interesting because I think we come to these decisions via like different metrics, but we often agree on the numbers. So for example, the top of this channel today is at about that 61 to 62K range. And I would feel better if Bitcoin did come back to check this before heading higher. And even if it revisited the middle of this channel, we're still, in the 50K region. And you'll notice that this has a lot of confluence with some of this, some of this sort of market top mountain range peak cycle that we had between March of 2022 and January of 2021. So even coming back into the middle of this channel, I think would be totally not just a reasonable expectation, but it should be something that that shouldn't cause the amount of fear that I know it's going to cause if it does come back and revisit these levels. And there's also nothing bearish about this. I like to be our resident bear, but honestly, like there's no really good like reversal indicators or anything, at least on the weekly chart. On the daily chart, I'm not seeing anything else. In fact, this is, if anything, it's looking kind of bullish. You can see the momentum picking up. So both Bitcoin and Ethereum, you could make the argument that if you weren't buying in the, if you weren't buying in all of these weeks that you've had to pick it up at a lower price, then, what were you doing? And why did you wait until now to pay a higher premium for that position? But what is the cost of, missing the bus on this compared to each other? Because ETH is actually in a very, very strong downtrend versus BTC. And this channel, I expect, is going to break to the upside. There's no idea, we have no idea when this could continue down for quite some time. But I don't think that it will. It's already quite long. And these descending channels are generally quite bullish. And I would be looking for opportunities to buy sort of in the lower half of this. So, when ETH is around this region, trading it versus Bitcoin is actually not a terrible idea. But eventually we will break out of this channel. We'll probably come back for a retest and then, head higher. And on the Bitcoin scale, ETH is a very long way from its, from its all-time high. So we've got about a 3x potential here just to get back to where it was versus Bitcoin back in 2017. And maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. But even just to get back to where it was in 2021, it's still like a 2x from here versus Bitcoin. And it could be that both of these coins perform extremely well versus the dollar in a bull market, but the upside potential on ETH, I expect, is going to be slightly better. And this is just my expectation. I'm not like an ETH maximalist or anything like that. I'm just pointing out that on this particular trading pair, these are the opportunities that I would be looking for to get out of a Bitcoin position into an Ethereum position, or at least it was at the beginning of the week, or even just as far back as yesterday, before it touched the top of this channel again. But I think eventually we are going to break the top of this channel and continue higher. And I've been paying attention to like a couple of people trading ETH versus USDC, and also versus things like Wrap Bitcoin and TBTC and things, including on Carbon. And I wanted to show you where some of these what some of these guys are doing. So, for example, there's this strategy here that even though there are higher ROIs, like maybe this is someone that's just trying some stuff out because there's only like $2 of liquidity in it, but he has managed to more than double his money, over the last year. But this one's actually got some capital in it, so this isn't like a test wallet or something. This is someone actually using the product for what it's designed to be used for, and he's got an 84% ROI on this versus the US dollar. And so if we have a look at, how this thing has been trading and how long it's existed for, this is only going back about a year. And it started with, a certain amount of ETH, and you can see it just trading backwards and forwards. And it's been using a fading strategy just with pure limit orders. So every time ETH comes back into this range, it will sell USDC for ETH, and every time ETH comes back up into this range, it sells the ETH back for USDC, and it keeps trading it back and forth. And this has been a phenomenally, well-performing strategy on ETH. And one of the reasons why I'm mentioning it is because it's very common, and I see it a lot on Twitter, for people to sort of have or want to bring attention to charts like this one, right? And say, oh, look how bad ETH is. Like, I feel so bad for all of the Ethereum holders because, if they had got out of their position at the top here in Bitcoin, their portfolio would be, on average, like, 50% better than it currently is. And that's certainly true. But in a way, I feel bad for the people that aren't trading Bitcoin versus Ethereum, right? Or aren't trading, some of these other exotic pairs that you hear me speak about every week.
I want to thank you
But
for
yeah.
reminding me how upset I am that I didn't buy more ETH yesterday. I've had a small position. It was underwater, and I was like, I should probably add to this position on a retest of support. And then I had a super busy day yesterday, and I was not in front of screens most of the day, and
Yeah.
I came home to a 20% gain. I was like, okay,
Yeah,
guess I'm waiting
exactly.
for the
And
next
if you
one.
have and if you have a look at like this channel is now like fairly like I would say fairly well characterized. Like, we can move these things around, drawing these things isn't an exact science. But you can still sort of get the idea that when the price is somewhere around here versus Bitcoin, this is a really good time to buy. And if you had done that yesterday, This is a 20% up versus Bitcoin, which is going up, as well. So that would have been a really good trade. And,
Really quickly. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
similarly, you can see the top of this channel is also relatively well defined. And so when it's kind of in this range, this is a good time to be getting out of your ETH position and back into a Bitcoin position, at least as long as this channel holds.
Right.
And so you don't have to do this with your whole portfolio. And for the record, I would never recommend doing anything with your whole
portfolio. Right.
But to have a small, a small amount of capital committed to trading things that have a predictable volatility, and Bitcoin ETH does have, at least since August of 2022, has been respecting this channel pretty well. Now, eventually, this will break out, and you'll be sad that you sold your ETH when you could have held it. But that's what your other positions are used for, right? For hedging the risk of something like that happened.
Well, and
But,
you're going to BTC, right?
Right.
I mean, this is another thing about this actual trading pair. I mean, it's ETH and BTC. You're not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How sad are you that, it's like, oh no, now I've got this huge bag of Bitcoin.
I mean, I get
but
it, but at the same time.
And so, this also begs the question, right? So on the daily chart, we've now, we've identified that there is a pretty good region here historically to be swapping your ETH for Bitcoin, and to swap your Bitcoin for ETH. And yesterday was a really good time because we're right at the bottom of this channel. And now we're like in the middle of this other channel. So like what should we expect? And this is where that narrative about the ETH ETF, I think, is going to be so important, because it could be that this momentum is sufficient to actually carry it out of the channel, and then ETH is going to start rising versus Bitcoin again. Or, as history would make you believe, this is another, sell ETH back for Bitcoin event, and wait for it to come back down. And I don't know, but what I will say is that this RSI looks very suspicious. It's very, very rare that we see a leap from sort of, from the 30s up to above 70 in such a short period of time. And so I would, like, if it were me and I had taken this trade yesterday, and I confess I didn't, because I wasn't paying attention. But if I did, I would be taking profits in this region now and cycling back into Bitcoin and waiting for ETH to come back again.
Yeah, but Mark, you're saying if you had done this yesterday, if you're looking at this channel and you're saying that this is something that's sort of a predictable pattern since what did you say?
The trend. Yeah, the trend is your.
I don't just set orders. Like he said the same thing.
Exactly.
His computer, but you wanted to add to your bag. But neither of you, and I'm curious, like, was there a reason why, or like to just simply set a limit order?
Yeah, and this is why, I think that this example of this person on, who's currently killing it on Carbon, is such a good example. And you can see that he's not even, he's not committing to something for this whole year. Every time we have this like gray icon, that's because he's changed the price targets that he wants to buy and sell at. And so this is an extremely, well-considered trading strategy, and it's doing very well. But yeah, the point is that if I was focused and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this properly, I absolutely would be, setting orders. I haven't traded ETH versus Bitcoin in a long time. But yeah, after preparing for this call and having a look at this channel, I think it might be one of the pairs that I'm starting to take an interest in again.
Yeah. I know you had a hard stop at 30 minutes.
Yeah, I do. I need to go, unfortunately.
Really quickly, first of all, I want to thank you guys so much. Do you have any other thoughts before we kind of wrap it up, Keith?
I'm I'm going to stand by my previous statements. I'm just, I think it's important to keep watching. We know what levels we need to watch in terms of how this is going to play out. I'm still taking my cues from the liquidity movement and placement. And that seems to be, for me, I'm very in tune to what I'm seeing here. And so I don't get it right every time. I miss some opportunities. But I think seeing more bid liquidity come in here obviously is inherently bullish. For me, it's a matter of whether or not we hold this 69K level, and I'm watching what happens with that bid liquidity, specifically at that level. I'll leave you with one last look of it, so you can see how this game is being played. Because that's the wrong screen. It definitely seems like it's being gamified a bit here. All right. So when I last showed you the screen, we were looking at
Wait, are
this
you
bit.
sharing? You're not sharing your
Oh.
screen. Okay, now I see you. Okay.
All right. So a few minutes ago, we were looking at this bid liquidity stair stepping down, right? Now look what's happening. They're trying to lure it back up, right? These guys had no intention of getting filled. They're just drawing it back up. And so pretty thin here down to 69. Is this going to hold? And 69 has less than 6 million on it now. So I would not be surprised to see this edge down a little bit. We'll see.
Keith, what do you normally see? Like you're looking at 6 million, you said, right? What's a comfortable amount where, it's
Well,
like, okay, this is a nice little cushion to sit on.
You would be surprised how little it takes to move the order book. We're looking at Binance here. Binance is the largest exchange by volume, by exponential volume. I mean, what they do in 24-hour volume is exponentially more than probably the top 8 exchanges, or close to that. Don't hold me to that number. Somebody's going to come, I'm going to hear it's only 5.
It's not financial advice, and don't quote him.
Whatever it is, it's still a good benchmark for the industry because the volume is so high here.
Right.
And so sometimes we will see, 5 million or 7 million, be enough to push things, herd things in one direction or the other. But it's not, in my opinion, a strong level that can't be taken out with ease. I mean, let's face it, when the market wants to bust through 20 million, 30 million, 100 million, it does. But it's pretty daunting. So when I start seeing them higher than 10 million, and especially when we get into 20, 30 million or more at one level. So I'm talking about literally one range here, one tight range. Those I start having more confidence in what we see there. If you look up here, this is 26 million, this yellow spot, 26 million. When you start seeing a bunch of those laddered, that adds up pretty quickly to hundreds of millions of dollars. And so in terms of a single level, what I really want to see down here on the bid side, and we talk about this frequently too, right, is a deep concentration of bid liquidity close to the active range. And last time we got it, sent us to the move that we have now, right? Is this going to be enough to hold? Right now, it looks to me like the top side, like resistance is way stronger than near range support.
Yeah, it just looks like those two are just flipped.
Right. So and it's like a ping pong game, right? We one side dominates for a little while, and then the other side dominates. And so right now, we've had a nice push into this. We did get some help from some liquidity getting pulled, and that's just part of the game. I think that I'd like to see a bit of a pullback and a correction. Well, I don't know how deep of a correction, but at least a retest to those support levels that we were looking at. Oh, I see what I've done. I pulled up my when Mark showed his parallel channel, I showed a little bit different one. I was looking at my chart to see how it compares to his. He was looking at the channel of the lower end of the range here, and this is my lifetime channel here, which illustrates that we're not back in that range yet. And I think that when we do get this big bull, when we confirm this RS flip and we take out this all-time high here, then where does price discovery happen? Well, it happens above all-time highs, right? Yeah. It happens above all-time highs, but I still think that this is a bit of a glass ceiling for us. So we could range boom, 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 all into through the year, and never break this level and still have 6-figure Bitcoin. So for me, I want to see in the near term. Let me expand charts, make it easy for you guys to see, even on your phones. I want to see consolidation above this 2021 top at 69K. I want to see consolidation here, and then and then a breakthrough this all-time high, and then I want to see consolidation above this all-time high before we can really move into the upper ranges. Yes, this is bright price discovery, but for me, the real price discovery happens if and when we clear this level, and then we get back into that lifetime channel. And gosh, imagine what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
If we're back in this lifetime channel here, and what am I doing? If we're back in this channel, and you go, and Mark did a good job of illustrating the midline of the channel, which is often can serve as a top, right? A lot of times that's where things get toppy. We've only visited the very top of the channel twice in history. And so if that is indeed to happen, what would the midline of that channel look like? That's $350,000 Bitcoin if it were to happen today, which obviously isn't happening, right? But down the road here, look at this, years down the road, maybe even the next cycle from now, we could be up here, and that's over $500,000 Bitcoin. I'm not one to forecast these things. I'm just saying that if we got back into this structure, that's a possibility. By the same token, we may never make it back into that structure. And at that point, 2028, right, would be 28, 29, something like that, the next 4-year cycle. We could be up here in $150,000 Bitcoin. Still, I'd be happy with that too.
Yeah.
Love to see it back in this channel. We got to go one level at a time. In the near term, let's just, for now, try and validate an RS flip right here at 69K.
That's been the number.
Yep.
Keith, I have one more question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We talk about the liquidity in the books, right?
Mm-hmm.
And going back to all-time high or past all-time high, when you are looking at all-time high and everything else, like with the fire charts and stuff, you can see the depth of the liquidity book. What is the overall liquidity looking like in comparison to that sort of time frame? Have you looked at that? Does that have any sort of significance into how it could be performing?
Well, it's like comparing volume today versus volume 5 years ago, 10 years ago, et cetera. Remember that the price of Bitcoin was much less, right? So like when you're looking at candle charts, especially that are denominated in Bitcoin volume, then it's, the volume was way higher then, but they were buying, 3 and 4 figure Bitcoin versus what we see now. In terms of what I look for in the books, it's simply a matter of, are we seeing the kinds of concentrations that we've seen historically? Here's a 3-year view, 127 million, 100 million here at this one level, but you see, a decent ladder below it, right? So it's not just what you have at that one level, but what do you have surrounding it? And, we had it here. Is this all we're going to get? It might be. Maybe this was it, but seems to me like we're ripe for another bump, right? But look how this is thinned out over time. It got stacked pretty heavy. A lot of this dropped down into the active range. Same thing down here. A lot of this moved up into the range, and so now it's pretty thin. It's pretty thin to the downside, which could also mean look like same here. There's no sentiment for this down here anymore, right? And price moves away. That's kind of what we're in right now. Sentiment for this sub 60K level has faded, and price is off to the races. We got to clear this level, get through this, and then I think things get interesting. But until we see enough momentum to push over this, and maybe it's this regulatory environment that doesn't. If this FIT 21 bill passes, it's supposed to go. There's no date on the calendar that I've been able to find, but it's supposed to go to vote in the House of Representatives this week before the holiday weekend. That it would still have to go to the Senate, and then it has to get signed off by the president. So it's not an immediate thing. Obviously, anything move in the right direction is going to be deemed positive by the market. And it isn't going to be perfect, whatever it is. People are going to complain, whatever it is. But having any real framework, a regulatory framework in the U.S. is so needed because, obviously it's an issue for innovators. It's an issue for exchanges. It's an issue for investors. But once this is defined, there are billions of dollars of sidelined money. I'm talking major institutional money that is waiting for that regulatory confidence and that regulatory clarity to come in. And that's when we'll see the next, in my opinion, that's when we'll see a real big wave of institutional coming in. Maybe they go to the ETFs, doesn't matter, right? It's still going to drive demand for Bitcoin price.
Something to think about, regulation is a whole nother topic in and of itself. I know that there are some of us that really, call for it, and then some that are.
Well, you don't want overreaching regulation, which is the problem, but you need some clarity, right? You need
clarity is the thing. I think we can all agree that, it's the lack of clarity.
Right. Just tell us what we can and can't do. Tell us what, how we're going to be taxed or, how things are going to be classified and let this industry thrive. The horse is not going back in the barn.
Right. Do you think that this is, like you mentioned earlier, this may be by the rumor?
Short term, I really think it could be, but like I said earlier, the long term, just like, and the Bitcoin ETF is a perfect example of that, right? Yeah. It was a buy the rumor, sell the news event in the short term, but anybody that bought it and held and is still holding, they're doing pretty good.
Yeah. What was Bitcoin at when it was approved? Do you recall? Just out of curiosity before we jump.
Yeah. Let's find the right chart. We were approved on January 10th. So I'm on a weekly chart. Let's go to a daily chart. I think we were right around here, right? So yeah. So here's where we topped out. Is approved on the 10th. First day of trading was the 11th. So it topped out at 40 at 49K, and then it dumped down to 38.5. And all of this, I mean, there's not a man, woman, or child on the planet today that wouldn't like to have Bitcoin in this price range.
Right. No, I know. When we were in that price range, we were like, it'd be really nice to have it at 20. Right? Funny how that works, know? But this is the thing, like, create a plan, right? Put that plan into motion.
Right. And in hindsight, in hindsight, when we were looking for 20, we were at 25, we were looking for 20.
Yeah.
And this was the consolidation range that really kicked things off. Mm-hmm. This was it. This is where the moving averages started unwinding. And look at this. In a matter of weeks, we unwound the 21 with the 50-day, then with the 100-day, and then with the purple 200, and it was off to the races. I mean, look at this. To the day they unwound, we took off.
Still crazy that it never came back and retested that.
Yes.
I think about that just because it's something like, now that I'm looking at this chart, it was like even the next run, right?
I remember this day vividly. I was coming home. I was coming home from a wedding in DC, and I was in my Uber riding home from the airport, and alerts started going off. I was like, wow, look at that big straight candle. It's going to retest. And it didn't retest. And we got all this, and then we consolidated here,
Then we kept going.
Right. So fortunately, I do, I did buy these ranges.
Right.
But I wish I had more from down here, and I wish I had more from down here.
I wish I had more from like 4 years ago when I first joined the space.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about it. It was 2017 for me. So Bitcoin crossed. I remember my first $100 purchase of Bitcoin was at $6,001.
Okay. Wait, that was in 2017?
That was on the run up to 20K.
Okay. All right. So when I joined, I think it was like 8. And then it went down.
Yeah, you were already on the
I
the
remember my first
downside.
buy though. I
You're
remember my
already on the
first buy. I was on my
downside
cell
of that.
phone with my Coinbase at the time, not knowing anything. And all I remember was buy, and I threw my phone. And I was like, that's it. You're in. Walk away, Jen. Hmm. Well, Keith, thank you
You
so
should
much.
have you should have walked away
Yeah,
and
no,
been on buy and hold since then.
instead I like dove in,
Right.
right? You can't really walk away. Some of
Mm.
us, some might, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah, me neither.
Thank you so much for joining me. I know that Mark obviously had to drop early. I was going to talk about, okay, so if any of our audience is going to ETHCC in Brussels or would like to go to ETHCC in Brussels, Mark, who was just on here, is going to be presenting with Token Engineering Academy, who is actually doing a giveaway for anybody to win. I think it's 5 free tickets to ETHCC. I'm going to share the link. Keith, I know that you have your audience watching as well. I know that they're global. I don't know how into, if they've heard of token engineering or if anybody else has, but wonderful, wonderful program, completely free of charge for everybody who joins it. So,
Cool.
and the opportunity to go to ETHCC.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
I'm going to share that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Keith, as always, you are such a pleasure. Thank you.
I always love it. Always love this call. Thank you.
And we'll see everybody next Tuesday.
All right.
Oh,
Have a good
hey,
one.
if you're in the United States, enjoy your 3-day holiday weekend.
Yeah, and for the rest of the market, know that TradFi is going to be closed on Monday.
This is true. Yeah, touch grass. You're going to get out on the water, aren't you?
I hope so. If the weather will cooperate, it's been super hot here, but it's been windy. It's been super windy, so I need winds to calm down a little bit, and we will get out on the water, and then I got a big week. My kid graduates high school next week.
That's huge.
Yeah,
I cried at my son's graduation on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Milestones.
No shame in saying it. One of the teachers was giving a speech and cried, and then there's mom sitting there.
Yeah,
crying.
we had senior awards last night. It was pretty impressive because she got a leadership award and like a bunch of her like really close friends in her friend group, literally like 20 kids that are in her close knit group got awards, and her she goes to a big school. There's like 700 kids in her senior class, and so the fact that she is running with a crowd of achievers and leaders is makes me proud.
Feels so good. So good. Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. I got another one to go. Got to get her through college, and I got another one to go. As soon as she graduates college, the other one will be graduating high school on her way to college.
We'll keep trading.
Right. I'm doing a full rewind on teenage girl high school, starting very soon.
It'll be good times.
Yes.
All right, Keith. Thank you so much again. Always great having you. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next week.
Yep. Have a great week, everybody. Trade safe. Be smart.
Be smart. See you guys.